Hello everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. I have somewhat recovered from the flu with a bit of wishful thinking and a lot of good intentions. I just really want to go through all of the decks that have been joining my collection in the last couple of weeks because I have so many. I believe that I still have about 11 decks we need to go through, and I've got some really exciting news that I will be able to share in probably a couple of days with you, because there's an additional couple of partnerships that came through, and that just made me incredibly excited. But that also means that I have so much more content that I need to put out. So obviously, we're just gonna take it one step at a time, one video at a time, and yes, indeed, also one deck at a time. So I wanted to show you a couple of things. First of all, let me just say that about 10 days ago, I have been to the Tarot Conference in Perth in Western Australia that is organized by Jo Watkins, and a big heartfelt thank you to Jo. The conference was absolutely fantastic. She made everyone feel welcome. It was incredibly interesting, and she's prepared an amazing lineup of speakers. I had my starstruck moment because I finally met in person with Liz Dean, who's one of my favorite authors when it comes to books on tarot of all times, and she's definitely my favorite author when it comes to the approach, a numerological approach to tarot, which is, as you will know and remember, my favorite approach to tarot. So she is the author of Tarot by Numbers. I highly recommend that book. It is readily available in your bookstores, in your Amazon, online bookstores, you name it. It is a fantastic book, but having the possibility to hear her talk about her experience with tarot, and also being able to connect with her personally and telling her, "Hi, I'm your biggest fan. You don't know me." It was really like a moment that I had anticipated, and I had to say, her name on the lineup was the main reason why I decided to go to the conference. I also want to say that this conference is amazing. If you're in Australia, I highly recommend it. Next year, the lineup is amazing, and we will see, for example, Kat Black. Yes, indeed, Kat Black. So she is the author of the Golden Tarot. So she is friends with a few people in the organization, and she's agreed to come to Australia and give, a lecture on during the Tarot Conference, which will be absolutely fantastic, I'm sure. But we will also have Lisa Porter, and we will have one of my favorite scholars when it comes to tarot, which is Mary Kay Greer. So Tarot Conference in Perth, that Western Australia, next year will be around the 21st of March. I highly recommend you follow the Facebook page, which I will make sure to put in the description box below, so just in case you haven't heard of it. So I have acquired a couple of decks when I was attending a conference, but then 3 or 4 days afterwards, I also went to Mind, Body, Spirit in Sydney, and I was lucky enough to visit the Rockpool stand, and I got a few decks out of Rockpool, and also the Blue Angel stand, where I had the possibility to acquire another couple of Oracle decks. And so let's just dive in, because as I said, we've got about 11 decks to go through, and you know me, I do like to chat, and so I don't want this video to go on for ages, and so let me just jump right in. So I want to start with this deck that really caught my attention, and I have to say it's not the first time that I've seen this deck. Has been published a few years ago, so you may probably have it. It is called the Inner Child Oracle, Loving Guidance and Renewal with Bunny Blue. If you're familiar with this bunny character, this blue bunny character, you will know how kind and gentle and soft his message, their messages are, and it is very intuitive. On I had the possibility to have a look at the deck. It is very intuitive in the sense that it really puts you in a stage that is conducive of this communication within yourself with your inner child, but at the same time, because it is very kind and gentle and soft, I would say, it is one of those decks that doesn't necessarily is not necessarily great for shadow work. Not that you have to do shadow work whenever you're in communication with your inner child. You just do what you need to do. Personally, right now, what I need to do when it comes to inner child work is to be kind and and understanding. And so this deck at that moment, even though, as I said, it has been published a few years ago, to the point that actually it was published after under the Blue Gaia um, section of Blue Angel. So it is still by Blue Angel Publishing, but it is called Blue Gaia when you look for the, let's say, the publisher. So what convinced me this time in particular to just grab this deck was the fact that I felt like I really needed to connect with this character on a deeper level. And I'm hoping that this will work out because obviously when we're buying a deck, or at least in my case, when I'm buying a deck, I always want to have an intention very clear within myself as to what reason is pushing me to buy that particular deck at that particular moment in my life. And so the Inner Child Oracle by Teresa Salerno, and the artwork is by Christine Caron. This is definitely something that, or at least I want it to be something that will help me out reconnect with some parts of my inner child that for one reason or another I just thought that I had to avoid listening to lately. And this is amazing as a deck itself. I'm sure you know about this deck. It comes with, as always, a guidebook. We do have a small thumbprint of the cards in here. Let me just see at the beginning if it gives you a little bit of an introduction talking about the character. It does give you a couple of possibilities for card spreads as well. Benny Blessing. So basically, before using these cards for the first time, you may choose to blast the deck. Okay, it gives you an idea on how to start using the cards as well. And here it says, so welcome to Bunny Burrow. The air is sweet, the ground bursts with harvest vegetables, and bunnies of all stripes and colors hop through wildflower fields to go about their daily business. There are proud bunnies and loud bunnies, sad bunnies and glad bunnies, but there are no bunnies like our helpful friend Benny Blue. So it starts with the story of Bunny Blue, which is very, very sweet, as you can imagine. Now, I am someone who grew up reading Watership Down and absolutely falling in love with that book to the point that I spent, I don't know, a full season of reading, interested in that book and everything that was related to the book and all of the symbology and and the metaphors that were really, you could find them on each and every page. And looking at bunnies and looking at hares and rabbits as if it were the same animal, it just doesn't make sense to me. So if you read Watership Down, if you have read it and you know what I'm talking about, you will understand why looking at Bunny Blue feels like it's almost like a completely different animal. I know that it's probably not the same family of animals. I know that there's different, the hares are not the same as rabbits, but you understand what I mean. It feels like you're dealing with a completely different kind of vibes and energy. Watership Down is, I don't know if I can say a violent book, but to be honest, there's a lot of really violent, aggressive scenes. And so I feel like it's actually appropriate to say that there's a lot of really strong scenes and very intense battles and fights and stuff like that. But it was an amazing, amazing book. In any case, so let's just have a look at the cards because this is the reason why I wanted to show you this deck. To me, now my personal practice has become a reason also to rejoice about all of these stacks that I'm acquiring, in order for you guys to rejoice with me. Because obviously, when I'm filming these videos, which are literally a let's say an unboxing, a first impression kind of video, I'm obviously bearing my soul to you because I'm literally just opening these decks and going through the cards and looking at them and reading the messages. Love this one, for example, chocolate spread. That reminds me of Nutella. I haven't had Nutella in ages. I don't even know why. I should probably have some Nutella. Anyway, so I just really love this image. Treat yourself, and that's something that when you're feeling sick, you're probably also more indulgent towards yourself. So I have been eating a lot of biscuits in the last couple of days because I was sick. Fertile foundation, growth. So as I was saying, it's a very wholesome experience for me to be able to share my first impressions with you guys. And if you have watched my part one of this mega haul, you will probably remember the reaction that I had to one of the decks. I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to, if you haven't watched the video, go watch it. It's actually quite a strong reaction that I had to one specific deck that I acquired. I had the possibility ever since then to do a kind of a deeper, let's say, research on that deck. And I completely understand now the vibes of the deck and also, let's say, the intention of the deck. It's something that I was not entirely aware of when I did the first impression. And so you will definitely see my a very visceral kind of reaction to that deck in that video. But to me, it's, I could have just chosen to edit that part out, but it doesn't make sense because what is my intention when I'm filming these kind of videos? I want to share my impressions, these first impressions of mine with you. And it only makes sense because I'm sharing them with you. So family with belonging. I really, really love this card. I look at the bunny that is crying, the little one that is crying here, and the mom and the dad, and they're all sharing the food, and it's obviously rabbit food, It's just really so interesting. It is, as I said, very kind, very gentle, unconditional love. This feels like it's a very typical card to be found in this deck. I have to say that it tends to happen more on older Blue Angel decks, but whenever there's a horizontal card in a deck that is 95% portrait oriented, to be honest with you, I would rather have them all either horizontal or vertical. It's simply because it does tend to disrupt the way in which I read. It blocks the flow. If I'm reading this for myself, and it doesn't matter whether I'm reading for myself or for a client, it doesn't really matter. The flow will still be kind of stilted when I have to turn the cards this way or that. It's not a massive deal, and I don't say this to complain or anything. I'm just noticing a couple of things that pertains to my way of reading, and someone else may be completely fine with that, and it's totally okay. I love this card because it talks about self-care, but at the same time, this looks like a cat lady. So it's almost as if Benny Blue were talking about taking care of ourselves, or self-care also consists in surrounding us with the purring sound of a beloved fur baby. And I, for one, absolutely agree with this. Bend and Be with the Yogi card, really, really cool. So it is whimsical at times, tenderness. Look at this card, Yummy Tea. This is really amazing. Celebrate and Beautiful Sorrow. This is really nice. Odd sock. I mean, this is my husband, ladies and gentlemen. My husband has probably, I don't know, something like 100 different pair of socks, maybe a bit less than that. I have to say it does wear them out. So it's not like he likes to buy socks, it's just that he does actually need them. But whenever I always tell him to buy the same color and the same length, because at least when I wash them, it's not a pain to divide them up. I can just put them up together. When he doesn't, then I get slightly upset, and this is what ends up happening. So you will find that sometimes they're not paired up, they're not matching. And that will teach him a lesson, because the last time we will buy them by the same color and the same length, so they will all match up. And Hungry Bunny, all you can eat carrot, absolutely fantastic. The gift of giving. So this is a very soft and gentle deck, and I just really wanted to open up this video with this deck because I had really, let's say, I try not to get my expectations too high for any deck, because I have been disappointed in the past and it was entirely my fault. And so when I'm doing an unboxing or a first impression, especially when I'm sharing it with you, I try always to be level, to be non-committal, to be okay, I think I will love this deck, or I think I will need more time to bond with this deck. Sometimes there are exceptions, as always, but I really wanted a very kind and soft deck. Now, moving on to the second deck by Blue Angel. This is a deck that I've been after for a while, ever since they announced on Instagram that this deck had been released and it was available. In Sydney, it was not available for quite a while. I had to wait, well, until I basically went to the Mind Body Spirit Festival last week, in order for me to finally get my hands on a copy. I don't. So if you're in Australia, I believe the latest news are that there are copies available at the Nile. Okay, the Nile Australia. It's just an online bookstore. They don't have any copies at Kinokuniya nor in Big W, at least in Sydney. I don't know whether the rest of Australia will have it, but you can always still find it in the Blue Angel website, and I believe it might also be available in Taratopia. Now, this is just for the Australian folks. I have no idea whether it will already be released in the US, but if it's not already released, you will see that it will soon be. I mean, there's not a massive difference. It's not like US Games publishing decks in the US and then 6 months afterwards in Australia, when everyone has already forgotten about those decks and no one is interested in those decks anymore. So this is the Feminine Myths Oracle, and the artwork and also the entire deck this time is by Ana Noves. Ana is a Brazilian artist, and she's behind a couple of other decks. One of them is the Soul Mirror Oracle, which is also being published by Blue Angel. But the deck is by Sunshine Connolly, and it's one of my favorite Oracle decks of all times. It's just incredibly useful, and it can be, your really faithful companion when doing all sorts of personal growth kind of work with an Oracle deck. Anna is also the author of a tarot deck, I think it's called the Nova Witch Tarot, but she's also the author of this oracle deck, which is based, as you can imagine, on feminine myths. And this is really interesting because I only had the opportunity to have a look at a couple of cards, but not all of them. And the ones that I saw were really incredible when it comes to the colors. You can already see from the couple of sample images we have here. And it's obviously dedicated to feminine myths or goddesses, which is always an argument I'm really interested in. And this is the deck, and so similar to the Soul Mirror, it's got the same kind of layout. So instead of being oracle size, let's say, which means a bit wider than this, it does have a shape which is more similar to a tarot deck. I believe that, well, when it comes to my preferences, this is probably one of my favorites, because this way it looks better when I'm using it together with a tarot deck. Does that mean anything or everything to me? No, absolutely not. It's one of the things that I'm looking out for. Obviously, the vibes, obviously, the artwork and the energy and the way it reads. These are all parts of a whole that constitutes for me the reason why I am pairing up tarot and oracle decks in a certain way. But certainly it helps. Let's put it this way. But let's just have a look at the guidebook first. So this is the guidebook. Although amazing because this is unusual. We see, I assume one of the cards here as the on the cover, and then the title is actually on the back cover, unless I'm looking at it the wrong way. No, I am doing the right thing. So very glossy kind of, or semi-gloss, let's say, kind of cardstock. Really, really beautiful. Feels very nice to the touch. A very high quality product, by the way. This is obviously copyright 2025, and it has been indeed released probably a month ago, not much longer than that. And we see immediately here from the table of contents, we got the acknowledgement, we got the introduction and how to use the cards. We see this, let's say 99% of the decks have a one chapter at least dedicated on how to use the cards, with maybe one or two spreads available. That would be very interesting. And then obviously you have all of the names of the goddesses or the feminine mates that are on the cards, and it tells you also that there's 50 cards, which is an amazing improvement. I have to say I am stoked about having 50 feminine mates to be able to work with. And then you got some additional reading and about the creator as well. So there's an introduction by Anna. Here a message, and as I said, how to use the card. So I'm expecting possibly a couple of spreads. No, it doesn't have spreads. It's okay. It is a it's fine. And generally speaking, even when you do see a couple of spreads in that section there, the introduction on how to use the cards, it is generally the 3 cards pool. So it's not like we've been giving God knows what kind of knowledge into or introspection into the cards. So what I have to say, and I know that this is generally speaking a deal breaker for me and a lot of other people, there are no keywords other than the titles on the cards. Yes, that is a massive letdown for me. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the deck. It just means that personally, I want to have the keywords on the cards, and I was watching a video by Anna, so the Astral Lady Tarot in the Netherlands, and she's done a fantastic modding of the Cave of Sybil Oracle, and I highly recommend you watch that video. And she was saying at the beginning of the video, why am I doing this? Because if I have to be on the guidebook all the time, I'm not working with the cards, I'm working with the guidebook. And I completely agree. And I was watching this video saying, yes, absolutely, that is exactly how I feel. So I am a strong advocate for always reading the guidebook, absolutely, because you want to know what the intention of the creator was when reproducing these cards, but at the same time I want to be able to use the cards, just the cards. And that is not necessarily always happening, especially for some, let's say, abstract kind of decks. This one, of course, after so many years of being in touch with the divine feminine and goddesses, I obviously already know a couple of keywords to be associated with some of these cards, but not all of them. And I would have preferred to have the keywords on the cards. Having said that, I'm already seeing that my goodness, the art style, these images here, they are so incredibly beautiful. That is something that really, it's not going to stop me from loving this deck. And I may find a solution to it. I don't know whether I may try some kind of modification in which I'm going to try and write down the keywords on the card, or maybe I'm just going to try and memorize them. As I said, I do know a few of them, like Freya, the Norse goddess of love and war, for example, Isis, Egyptian Persephone, of course. But let me just, instead of reading all the titles and just go through card by card, can we just take a moment to admire the combination of fantastic, really fantastic artwork and the color palette, guys? Oh my God. This is amazing. I absolutely love these cards. They're incredibly beautiful. I mean, there is so much power coming out of these drawings. It's incredible. It's Sekmat. It's really incredible. I will do my best, as I said, to just memorize the cards, and in a way to be able to use them with as much ease as possible, let's say. But these are incredibly beautiful. Oh, look at Oshun. It's just Ariam Rod, Mara. I love the fact that, I don't know if you can tell, it is subtle. Let me see. Probably easier to see it on this card. So I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot of let's say sketches on the background, and then there are these splashes of colors on the top. But you can still see the sketch, and they are the same as the background in the back of the cards here. So as you can see, these kind of sketches, I don't know how else to call them. You can see them in the cards, in the background of the cards as well, and they're just really, really beautiful. So as I said, I will spend some time with this deck. Ishtar, wow. So I will spend some time with this deck, as much time as I need in order for me to just feel confident when using it, because of the lack of keywords. I would say that Baba Yaga, I would definitely imagine Baba Yaga to be an elderly woman. So I don't know whether I relate so much to this um, character, which looks a lot younger, but it's still really, really beautiful. Satna, of course. So I am absolutely excited about the possibility to learn more, because I believe I did also a video. Please excuse me, I actually don't remember. I posted almost 600 videos by now, in the span of just over 2 years. So you will forgive me if I just don't remember if I posted a video about all of my goddesses related decks, whether they're tarot decks or oracle decks. I believe I did. And it would be very interesting also to try and compare my own knowledge of these feminine myths, and also what the keywords proposed in the guidebook is, just to see whether they coincide and match or not. Amenosme, Hecate, of course, really beautiful. Neath. And there's a few of them that I actually don't even know, so this is even more exciting. But I have to say, absolutely gorgeous deck. Really love the colors. Really, really love the artwork as well. As always, this is one of the most recent decks, as I said, by Blue Angel, and the tactile feel to the deck is very nice as well. Very, very smooth, and it also fans out really well, as you can see. So I'm really stoked about having the possibility to use this deck, and I cannot wait. I already know a couple of tarot decks that I want to try and pair it with, but let's just move on with the next one. So I just want to talk about an indie deck now, because as I said, I was at the Mind Body Spirit Festival in Sydney, and I had the opportunity to have a look around, and I have to say, this year there were not that many indie created when it comes to tarot and oracle decks, but there were a few, and this is one of them. I had the possibility and the pleasure to talk to. This is Mel Morgan, and she's the author of the Golden Awakening Oracle cards. It is funny because we were talking, and she was saying, you know what, this is really meant to be, because she did all of these paintings, and there's going to be a gallery as well where many of these works are going to be displayed. But she said that this is such a new deck, that she only just received a couple of days, the actual deck, the actual copies of the deck. She only just received them a couple of days before coming to the festival. So obviously this was really meant to be. And I was really taken by the artwork and the vibes that these communicated. Also, yes, also by the titles and the fact that there's a sentence at the bottom of the cards that is also very guiding and conducive. So the Golden Awakening, obviously, you've got the guidebook here. So for each and every one of the cards, you also have a colorful thumbprint, and also, as I said, the title and then the affirmation that goes with it, and also a little bit of a sentence. Not too much, but this is enough, and this is what we basically need. As you can see, it is a type of artwork that can be also a little bit abstract, but very, very intuitive, very communicative as well, depending on how much you want to let it in. That is immediately the feeling that I got for this deck whilst I was looking at the cards, obviously. And now just to go through them, these are the backs, by the way. I have to say, this is a very similar cardstock to the one I just showed you from Blue Angel. I am not an expert. It feels a little bit thicker. So this is really sturdy, but it does still have a really good bounce to the cards. And it's one of the very, let's say, normal size for an Oracle deck, I would say. So very standard, but as I said, let's just focus on the images because these look absolutely amazing. I hope that the camera will do them justice because sometimes there's some kind of a, depending on the exposure, the white balance, and all these kind of things, and you don't necessarily see the colors the same way I see them. But I can assure you these are amazing, amazing. So the Golden Awakening, Protected. So this one at the bottom, for example, I don't know if you can see, but it says, you are divinely protected and never alone. That's an amazing message. Soul family, everything becomes easy when you have found your people. And ascension, time to level up, raise your frequency, and step into your power. Metamorphosis, change allows us to become the person we are destined to be. So obviously I'm not going to show you all of the cards, or at least I'm not going to read all of the messages, but this is an incredible deck. It is one of those decks that feels like a portal, and I don't always say this about a deck in the sense that to me it's always about understanding what the intention of the creator is. Why do they go to the extent of producing a deck, and why do they print it? Why do they want to sell it? Why do they want people to work with their deck? There is an intention there. They want to obviously manifest something. And the moment in which I understand what that thing is, that is an amazing way for me to open up to what the message of the deck is as well, and just make it mine if I so wish, if I feel that it resonates with me. This was one of the cards that I looked at, and I have to say the card itself. So when it comes to the artwork, without looking at the keyword, let's do it this way. When I look at the artwork, this is an incredible card. It reminds me a lot of, let's say, Scylla Conway's type of work, and the Devils of Creation. Yeah. This is very inducive. It's almost as if I was talking about it earlier. So to me, it really works like a portal. It is almost as if it were a cathartic experience in order for me to focus on the card and understand where the card wants to take me. Because as you can see, there is a really strong sense of motion here, given by the curves here, but also by the way in which you see almost as if these characters were stretched because they're being transported into a different reality. And I really, really love this card. And when I looked at the keyword is surrender. Never force what is not flowing. And I had a little bit of at first I had a bit of a cognitive dissonance because to me, the artwork on the card meant that there was this flow and the flow felt natural and it did not feel forced. But then by reading never force what is not flowing is, it makes you think. It makes you think because you go, okay, so that might be something that is flowing for these two characters here, but might not be flowing for the characters that are on the sideline here. So it almost tells me that it's okay to let go or to surrender if I feel like that is the right thing to do. But being an air sign, surrender is not an easy task for me at all. And so it also is okay if it doesn't feel like letting go for me. It's almost as if it were a way to tell me that it's okay no matter what my reaction is. And I know that it's sometimes a bit of wishful thinking or maybe indulgent kind of thinking, but it is something that needs to resonate with you. It is something that needs to make sense. So we start with the creator's idea on what to tell you, on what that specific message should be. And then it is up to us to interpret that message and also relay back. And when you're reading for someone, you would translate it and relate back to the person you're reading for. If you're reading for yourself, you will be the one, first point of contact and the first moment in which you will be able to enjoy what you're doing and the message that you're listening to. Really amazing deck. Again, I have a couple of tarot decks that I want to start pairing it with, but this will be for another video because I really want to go through all of the decks today. And I'm very worried because we've only been through 3 decks that I can count here. So let's move on to the another couple of decks that are not by, let's say, the Rock Pool or the Blue Angel stand. So there's this deck here, which is, for me, it was a bit of a find. So what happened was that I was just, um, walking down Fremantle, which is the location south of Perth where the conference was, and it was the day before. And together with 2 of my members, we were there with Tash and Claire, and we were just looking at shops and walking around. There was this bookstore. It was a secondhand bookstore, and we always go inside because you can find some really beautiful things, pre-loved things, not just books. And so I asked the guy, and I was like, do you have any decks? And he's like, oh, I don't have much, I just have this one and another couple of decks. And I was like, I almost had a heart attack because I don't know if you know this, but this is the Jodorowsky and Jimenez Metabarons tarot. And this is obviously based on the concept and the idea of the Metabarons, which is obviously based on sci-fi. And it is an amazing deck. It has been, let's say, out of print. It is originally was published by Los Carabel. As you can see, it's the traditional tack box by Los Carabel. And originally, I think it's from 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, might be 2017. I'm not entirely sure. But it went out of print. I don't know whether it was because they probably didn't renew the contract. There's a number of reasons why a mass market deck will go out of print. It just means a lot of things. And sometimes we are not privy to what necessarily guides these decisions. But in any case, it went out of print, and then people started trying to get their hands on it, and they just couldn't. It was very rare, very hard to find. And now you can see it sold for like $200, which is, I believe, well, I'm not going to say it's too much because a deck is worth as much as anyone is willing to pay for them, right? So I subscribe to that idea. So this one comes with the usual Los Carabeo kind of guidebook. I have to say though that because it is entirely based on the saga of the Metabarons, it would be very difficult to read with this deck, and I don't necessarily want to use it for readings, nor for myself, nor for clients. This is it's the typical example of let's say, a collectible item because it is now out of print, and it is quite difficult to find. And also because, I mean, let's face it, some cards may be resonating, like this one, for example, is the Lover's card, but this is the Strength card, and, it could even be the Justice card. It may actually be the Justice card, and this is the Strength card. I cannot tell. So unless I go back to the guidebook, I wouldn't be able to tell. This is the Hermit card, for example. This is the Wheel of Fortune, and and this is the hang one. So there's a number of reasons why I wouldn't be able to read with this deck, and therefore I'm not even going to try. The reason why I am so really stoked that I found this deck is because it's a deck that is out of print, but it's also because I really actually love the art style. It doesn't need to be resonating with me. It doesn't need to be pointing to a very clear message behind the card when it's not a deck that I am planning to use for readings. This is obviously referring to that sci-fi that was very typical of the saga of the Metabaron. But there's also a number of cards that actually remind me a lot, that it does specify that on the guidebook as well, of another saga, a sci-fi saga, which is Dune by Frank Herbert. So obviously there are a lot of images that will make you recall these two really fantastic shows, let's say, or sagas. I really like this deck. It's just perfect for me. Yes, it is, as I said, not a deck that I would use for reading for sure, but it is an amazing deck nonetheless. And I am so very stoked that I could find it because, as I said, I really actually enjoy the art style. And so this was the Metabarons. And then we're just moving on to another deck that is from a publisher that until a while ago, I thought it was almost impossible to buy from, and it's Kisses from Ibiza. Now, if you're not familiar with this publisher, they have an Etsy shop which is called literally Kisses from Ibiza. But then one day, what happened was that I was browsing. I only have one deck from them, and it's the Banksy Tarot Majors only. But I love their decks. I think they're quirky. I think they're very unique. I think there's a lot that looks appealing to me. Not all of the decks. They have something like probably 200 different decks. So I don't like all of them. Some of them are Oracle decks. Some of them are Majors only. I believe that there's only one or two full 78 cards tarot decks. But I was looking to their Etsy shop and I looked at the shipping cost and it's like $50 now. And so that was heartbreaking because I was looking for this deck, but then I was able to find it on Amazon because beware, or at least in Australia, Kisses from Ibiza has a shop in Amazon. It's not called Kisses from Ibiza, it's called Ibiza Store. So it's the same. It is absolutely the same. It comes with a certificate of authenticity and a message handwritten saying thank you for buying this deck, etc. However, the shipping costs are noticeably reduced, and I believe that I only paid $21 for shipping. So as opposed to $50, $60, 21, that's okay. I'm okay with paying $21 for shipping to Australia. It's fine. 50, 60, $70, I would have thought twice about it for just one deck. So I am stoked to have this deck. It is a little bit weird. Okay, I was talking about this with a really good friend of mine. She's also into tarot, and she was like, you have to stop apologizing for liking weird decks because it's just your preference. It's very personal, and it's absolutely fine. And she's completely right. But I still feel like I have to say that I know that this is not everyone's cup of tea. So if you don't like it, just skip ahead. But this is a very powerful deck, let me tell you, and it's not a horror deck. I know that it might look like it is. Trust me, it's not. It's just very intense. So, is this the real life oracle? As you can see, Ibiza Tarot. And when you open it up, it's the usual, let's say, envelope shaped sort of box that they send their decks with. And then there's just the usual introductory card that tells you how to use the oracle. But we don't necessarily need this. So let me just see. Okay, because that's one thing to say. It is in black and white, although there are splashes of colors every now and then, not many. But I am a bit worried that through the lens it may look darker than what it actually is. So if that is one of your concerns, I can assure you that I can still read. So you can see here there's a title or keywords, and then there is a message at the bottom. I can still read it, and this tells you a lot. So if I can read it, you can read it. So this one is called Infinite Echoes. Your actions reverberate through the cosmos, leaving an indelible mark on the fabric of reality. Wield your influence and with wisdom and compassion. So that was one of the cards that I was reading, and then we've got Eternal Illusion, Temporal Tapestry. That was another card that I had the possibility to see, and that convinced me for sure to buy this deck. I really love the concept. Your life is a tapestry woven from the threads of time. Marvel at the beauty of your existence and the intricate patterns of your journey. So absolutely fantastic. I love the artwork. And as I was saying, it looks to me like Coraline. So if you're not familiar with Coraline, it's a story. It's a novella written by Neil Gaiman. And it talks about the alternate reality Coraline finds herself in at a certain point in her life. She's, I believe, 12 years old. I'm not entirely sure, could be wrong, but I believe she's preteen, probably. And it is a really beautiful story, very, very symbolic as always. But there was I believe, whether it was a cartoon, an anime made based on the novella, I believe that it reminds me a lot of that. I must have watched it, obviously, I must have seen it somewhere. Or it might have been a graphic novel as well, based on the novella. But in any case, this reminds me a lot of Coraline. So Celestial Voyage, for example, Soulful Resonance, Soul's Reflection. So it looks a bit odd, okay? It looks a bit weird. It's a bit probably also whimsical. I know these eyes, right? Like that. And we all have a thing for eye bulbs. So I understand that. I really do. But it is very intense. And it says, Soul's Reflection, peer into the mirror of your soul and confront the essence of your being. Discover your true self with courage and authenticity. I mean, look at this card. Look how beautiful, Mystical Mirage. Look how beautiful this card is. I just really, really love this. Realm of Dreams, Cosmic Awakening, Mystic Rhapsody, Echoes of Eternity. I mean, this is incredibly beautiful. It does remind me a little bit of Tim Burton's style as well. You will definitely remember Tim Burton's. There's a couple of decks that have been fashioned after his movies. For example, The Nightmare Before Christmas, that's by Tim Burton. There's also The Corpse Bride and others. And it does remind me a little bit of that kind of style as well. Divine Paradox, Illusion Unveiled. This one I haven't read. Let me just read it quickly. This card prompts you to question the reality you perceive. Things may not always be as they seem. Look beyond the surface for the truth. Very, very powerful. Galactic Symphony, Chaos Transcendent. Look at this card. Isn't it just absolutely amazing? I personally really like it, as I said. But there's also something else to say. There's not a lot of cards. These are the decks by Cases from Ibiza. There's about 22 cards. It is what it is. Or maybe there's a bit more, but in any case, it's not your usual 44 cards that we would love to see in an Oracle deck. But personally, I think that there's a lot that you can work with this deck, with these cards. You can really go deeper into the meaning. So it doesn't really constitute a deal breaker for me that we have less cards than what I would normally look for. Now we're moving on to the last 5 decks. Stay with me, stay with me. I know you can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. So let me just start with the smaller ones, because these ones I could probably show them to you one by, let's say, all 3 together. So this one I was actually gifted at the Tarot Conference. Is the Angel Whispers by Debbie Malone, Positive Affirmations to Guide and Encourage You. But I actually bought these 2, The Divine Doors by Andres and Gracia, and The Forest Fae by Nadia Turner. Now, these 2 is because I want to pair them up with a tarot deck in particular. This one will be a surprise. I'm not going to tell you, but I have to order it from Make Playing Cards, so it might take a couple of weeks. And The Forest Fae is, all of those really beautiful decks by Julia Jeffrey. So let me just quickly open them. And I'm sure that you're familiar with these decks, so I don't think that I need to show you all of the cards. But something that I wanted to say about these decks, though, is that I believe that sometimes they are a bit underrated because they are smaller, obviously. And sometimes even myself, I probably did, made a mistake of not entirely looking at them when they came out, because somehow I was thinking they're not the full size, they're smaller decks, I won't be able to use them like I want to. I don't know. There is maybe, I don't want to call it a stigma for these types of really small decks, but at the same time, it feels almost as if they don't have the same kind of attention that a full-size deck has, which is really a pity, because I have to say, not all of them, of course. Some of them I find them not really conducive of anything, just messages slapped on a card, which doesn't really tell you much. But some of them are actually really beautiful. So let me just show you quickly. I believe that this one is just messages. I could be wrong, but let me just see. So yes, these are just messages. Obviously, as you can see in the backs are all the same. And then when you turn it like that, there are messages. Now, I'm not saying that the messages don't resonate. I'm not saying that the messages are not worth the deck. As a matter of fact, in many, many cases, these messages will be incredibly powerful, very helpful, and they have this way of coming to you when you actually need them. So I still appreciate this deck, even though, let's say, it's not one of those decks that I will love using and I can't wait to use because of the aesthetics. Let me put it this way. But when we look at, for example, the Forest Bay by Nada Turner, so we already start by looking at the backs, which are actually really cute. I really, really like these backs. And then you have characters on the cards. And more to that, you have titles, but you also have a little bit of a sentence. So the soothsayer says, travel the road seldom taken. And I love this because you got everything you need. You got the image, of course, it's a beautiful art style. You got the title, and also you have a little bit of an affirmation there. So absolutely fantastic. And I really do. I like them. Obviously, it really depends whether you like this particular art style or not. It might be not resonating with you, and it's totally fine. But I mean to say that compared to the Angel Whispers, I would probably prefer these ones because let's say that they probably tick more boxes on a table of stuff that I want to get from a deck. So the Gatekeeper, Let Go, All Things Are Possible, on the Borderlands, and She of the Mossy Brain. Not all things are as they seem. Trust in your intuition. Not all things are as they seem was another card in the previous deck. So this is probably a message that I should take into consideration today, especially because we're still on the Mercury retrograde. And I don't know about you guys, but honestly, I need to be really careful. It seems like technology keeps on failing around me. Today was it today? No, yesterday morning. It was actually kind of dangerous because it was a traffic light. So there is obviously a switch in the traffic light, and I was crossing the pedestrian crossing, and it was green for me. So I wasn't doing anything wrong, but there was obviously something not synchronized correctly, and there were cars coming in. And even though I was crossing and it was green for me, it was obviously green for them as well, and they were crossing. And so I was like, nothing happened. I wasn't in any danger, but I thought to myself, okay, that's, it could have been dangerous, obviously. So when it comes to Mercury retrograde, and we always tend to think that it is annoying and it influences your communication, especially when it comes to technology and communication. But sometimes it can actually be dangerous. So please protect yourself, because you never know. So these ones, I believe, they have different backs. Yes, they have different backs, and they're all doors, and I really love them. Sorry, Divine Guardian. Do not be nervous today or tonight. The path you are on will lead you just right. Oh, that's such a nice message. Thank you. This is Angkor Wat, by the way. I've been there many, many years ago. Really love these cards. I have a passion for doors. I don't know why. It feels like they are very interesting architectural objects. That they are part of the house, but at the same time, they need to be part of the outdoors as well. So it's the part of the house that means that you are opening up or closing down. They decide whether your world is inside or outside. This one is in Bali, and I've been here as well. I've got a photo of myself and my husband in this gate, which is amazing. It's a pity that the photo doesn't show you, but on the background, there's a massive mountain. So it's actually really, really cool. So I really look forward to use this deck with the other tarot deck that I was mentioning earlier. That is going to be a surprise, because it's going to be really interesting. And, depending on the images themselves, I will decide whether they represent a closed door or an open door as well. Like, for example, this one is clearly an invitation to this garden. And this one is instead quite the opposite. So it's still an open door, but instead of an invitation to go outside, is an invitation to go deeper within yourself. So really, really excited about this one. They look absolutely amazing. This one is in Ladakh, I believe. I've been to Ladakh, but it was such a long time ago. Funny story. Oh, this is the Fushimi Nari Taisha, which is a number of, I believe, 400 tori. Tori is the gate, the traditional gate in Japanese temples. And it's, let's say, in between Kyoto and Osaka. So we're officially going to Japan this summer. So these three decks, let's move on to the last three. And I believe that all three of them are actually not available yet in Australia. When I say available, not available, I always refer to Australia. This is the country where I live, and that is the place where I can actually tell you where something is available or not. And they may have been published already in the US. I have no idea. They are by Rockpool. So this is the Wild Whispers Oracle. But now I'm thinking, sorry about that. Now I'm thinking this one is actually available. The other two are not, or they might be available starting on the 5th of April, or at least this is what the date of release says when you look for them. Don't take my word for it, because as I was able to buy these decks, maybe other people were able to buy them as well. I honestly don't understand what's going on with the release dates anymore. Sometimes Rockpool releases first in the US and then in Australia, sometimes at the same time, but they're not necessarily readily available. Sometimes, first in Australia, then overseas. I have absolutely no idea. If you know anything about the policies, just let me know. It would be nice. So this is the Wild Whispers Oracle by Nat Gersberger. And yes, if the name sounds familiar, it's because she's also the creator of the Radiant Wilds Tarot, which is very similar to this. The cards have this kind of cosmic but also desert vibes to them, and it's a tarot deck, and this is an oracle deck. So I'm very curious to see, because as you know me, I obviously bought this deck because I want to try it out in a pairing, and it looks like it will be really nice. The cards will be a match made in heaven. So let's just go to the cards immediately. The guidebook, I don't think the guidebook will present you with any specific additional thing other than the introduction and the how to use the cards and the usual. Perhaps there's a couple of spreads, I'm not entirely sure. How to use the card deck structure, card structure, and then obviously talks about the division between sunset cards, sun nadir cards, and then the sunrise card, and the sun zenith. So nadir and zenith are the extreme 2 points in the horizon. Let's say I used to know these things a lot better, so now I'll probably say something really stupid. But it depends on the position of the astrological bodies, and in this case, the sun. So zenith and nadir are at the opposite of the, is it called parallax? See, I should probably check these things out before talking about them. I used to know them. I actually indeed take a class on astronomy back at uni, but that was a long time ago. So I am stoked that we've got keywords in here. So wonder, grounding, freedom, boundaries. I love this card, by the way, with the hand and the heads. So I'm really stoked because I am definitely going to pair it up with the tarot deck. It feels like there's the same types of vibes, even though I have to say that this deck feels a little bit more earthy to me, probably because of some of these colors, whereas the tarot deck, the Radiant Wilds, felt a little bit more airy and a little bit more cosmic, let's put it this way. So it would be very interesting to see, when I do associate a deck that to me feels airy with a deck that feels earthy, which one of the elements will actually be the dominant one, because it would be interesting to see and to determine what type of work that I can do with those two decks together. In any case, absolutely stoked about this deck. I really, really love it. It's very simple. It's very linear. You can see it also by the choice in the, let's say, the backs of the cards. I mean, the images are very straightforward. You can see that, and then the association between the images and the keywords is also straightforward. And we definitely need a deck like this because in many, many cases, this is one of the decks that I would use when I literally want to just be transported by the messages of the cards rather than having to work around them or try and understand them. I don't mean to say that one type of work is better than the other. It's just so simply I need to differentiate between the two. And then these two, so I know that this one used to be a indie deck. I am Queen Oracle by O.T. Arma. And this one is now mass market. So just in case you have the indie edition, I seem to remember that there were a couple of different indie edition by the same creator, a couple of indie Oracle decks. And I don't know whether this one is one of the two or maybe a mix of the two. I have no idea. But in any case, I was really interested by the artwork that we can see already from the box, for example, here. So I'm just going to point something out to you that I really saw immediately. And that was like, okay, I really want this deck. Do you see the crown here? So the crown looks like it's a collage, right? It looks like it's a collage. But do you see what it says here? So it says here Barberino, and then San Casciano, and other Volterra, for example. So this is the area. So this is a map of Tuscany, of a particular area in Tuscany. And this is the area where we were when my husband proposed to me. And so when I saw it, I was like, well, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what the sign will be. So it is, let's say, south of Firenze. If you're familiar with the area, let's say Volterra, Barberino is very famous for wineries. It's just absolutely amazing. But I am very curious about the rest of the deck because I don't know whether it's something that is recurrent or not. So allow the wisdom of the queen within to guide you. Yeah, absolutely. We need to do that. So the usual guidebook. I'm not expecting anything to be different. Introduction, how to use the cards. And there's also card spreads. Let's just have a quick look if there's anything different between the spreads. So a card spread with 1, 2, and 3. And that's it. So nothing to write home about, but it is still nice to have them there. And then obviously you go into the cards with the meaning, etc. So let's just get into the cards. I love the inside of the box as well. And let's see, really beautiful gilding, by the way. I don't know if you can tell, but I don't know if you can tell through the lens. Maybe if I do this, do you see that there's a little bit of a pattern on the gilding here? It is still holographic, and it's very interesting. It goes from, let's say, red to orange to yellow. So really, really nice gilding. They've done a really good job. So Queen of Insecurity, love the artwork. Queen of letting life move through, unbelievable. Queen of trying to keep it together with the smile, the tight smile with the door here. Amazing, absolutely amazing artwork. I really love this deck. I had the possibility to have a look at as I said, the indie edition of this deck. And I really loved it. I really thought that it was absolutely amazing. This is the type of art style that is really powerful. It might be at times, not confrontational necessarily, I wouldn't say it is, but it's not the type of art style that is soft. It's definitely not soft. It is something that it's inviting you to look at it. It's calling for your attention. It is definitely drawing into the cards and asking you to take a position. I find it very pleasing, very beautiful, powerful, but very beautiful. The expression of strength that comes out of these cards is something that finds echoes within myself. So I really like it. And as I said, it does resonate with me. But I just wanted to share that detail with you because, the detail of the crown with the collage of the map from that area south of Florence was just really such an amazing coincidence. And we do have the cards here, so it's obviously the same. So I just wonder, why choosing this particular area? Is it of any significance to the creator as well? Let me just quickly look into the guidebook number 29, whether there is an explanation for that or not, but I don't think there will be. It feels like it's just, depending on just a collage. So this is the Queen of Adventure. Though there is, recalling the fact of adventure, so maybe travel intended that way. She is curious and playful, and she loves to travel and discover new places and people. She always looks for fresh experiences, whether small everyday adventures or grand journeys to far off lands. She can stop and talk with strangers in the middle of the day, go to a different coffee shop, or try new food. She is a fearless risk taker. Finding her within, take a moment to reflect on your past adventures and how it felt when you jumped in, took a risk, and explored something new, gifts, etc. So I don't think that it actually says why there's been this specific choice, but it does refer to a map and, that sense of adventure that you have whenever you're looking at the map because you're obviously traveling. So Queen of Innocence, really beautiful. Look at this one, the Queen of Success. This is absolutely incredible. I mean, it may feel a bit overwhelming when it comes to the amount of colors and the elements on the card, but I actually quite like it. Again, I know it's not for everyone. It may feel overwhelming to a lot of people. To me, there's other decks that feel collage decks are lately starting to feel a little bit overwhelming to me, and therefore I decided not to back a few ones that are on Kickstarter at the moment. But this one feels like I feel okay with it. So it is different, obviously. Depends on how you relate to the images, but I really like this one and I'm looking forward to use this maybe with the painted tarot. I'm thinking it might probably go well with the painted tarot. I don't have that deck, unfortunately, but it is on my wish list, so if I acquire it I would definitely want to try it out as a pairing. And then we made it last but not least. So this is an incredible deck because I know that first impression may not look like much as a black and white deck. However, please let me explain. This is the Mystic Islands Oracle by Mira Norvianti. And this is based on wisdom from Java and beyond. So if you're not familiar, Java is an island in Indonesia. I have been to Java and I absolutely loved it. I have traveled all throughout Java from Jakarta to Jakarta to the south. We travel by bus, so obviously we were stopping anytime we could. It was a private bus with a travel group. So we were stopping. We had a local Javanese guide, and it was a fantastic adventure. We went to the volcano, we went to a number of places. It was really incredible. I have to say, that was before the pandemic, that was 2019. We spent over 5 weeks in Java, and then we just hopped on a ferry to go to Bali. It was really an incredible adventure. Really stunning, really, really stunning. Jakarta is fantastic. Jakarta is very interesting as well, but the nature of Java is just something unique. I highly recommend it. Now, this one will be very interesting because whilst we were traveling in Java, I was actually really asking a lot of questions, to the guide because he was a local and obviously his English was perfect, so we were able to communicate. And it was really, really interesting. He also invited us to a dinner at his place. So his wife cooked for us. It was really amazing. And we talked about many things. And, we talked about the tsunami as well. So a number of things that were also kind of really emotional for both of us. If you know my experience with the tsunami, I've talked about it a couple of times. I don't, not more than a couple of times. I don't always talk about it, but whilst I was there, we went to visit the places where the tsunami hit the most, and it was very intense. It was a very intense experience. In any case, really interested about this deck because there's a lot of magic in Java. You can breathe magic when you're walking down the street, we were cycling at a certain point, and you can literally breathe it in. So it is really interesting, and I was stoked to be able to relate myself to the local culture in such a way that I was just merely trying to understand it, obviously, without making sense in my way. So I wasn't trying applying my own structure and vision of the world onto something that was already existing by itself. I was merely trying to understand it, and it was an incredible experience. So really interested about this one. It does have the user introduction on how to use the cards. So it is divided in elements by you with wind and air, Agni with fire, and Tirta with water, Bantala with earth, and Akasa with ether. So that would be very interesting. It feels like it's very elemental, so there'll be a lot of that. In Jakarta, there is an incredible museum about Southeast Asian art, which I highly recommend if you find yourself there. And also, Chinatown in Jakarta is probably one of the best experiences. I just absolutely loved it. I had to try all of the food there. I just really love food. There's no choice around that. Sorry. So this box has a very velvety kind of feel, rose petal kind of feel to it. The front and the back as well, which I really like and appreciate. But the cards, ironically, are not. They're not rose petal. They're actually really glossy. Let me just show you. Yeah, you see how they catch the light. But I have to say, which is not my favorite, but it's just because of filming purposes and taking a photo. When you have such a glossy finish to a card, you invariably try every kind of angle possible, and you will still end up with catching the reflex of a light somewhere. It doesn't matter because when it comes to the colors, it's actually really nice. A finish like this can actually help the colors pop, which is ironic because this is actually a black and white deck. I just wanted to talk about it. So the edging is really beautiful. It's a very sleek kind of black, carbon black, which I really, really like. So let's have a look. So we've got the name of, let's say, the character represented on the card, as you can see here, Kresna. But you also have a keyword associated, which is one of the reasons why I was convinced in buying the deck, because I want that reference to a keyword. So this one is about diplomacy, dark magic with avoidance, Gurungan with change, Banawati with morally ambiguous. Wow. Radhen Gatot Kaga with destiny. Sisajan with ancestors. The golden deer with ambition, and so on and so forth. Hanuman, we've got Hanuman as well. The banyan tree. Rangda with slander. So Wewe Gambel with neglect, really powerful. I have to say, really, I do recognize some of these symbols. But I have to say, very, very powerful. All of these cards. It feels like you can literally breathe in the magic that comes out of these cards. Kunum Merapi. So Gunung is, I believe, the word for volcano. Batarakala. Sovereignty, Hex. Lake Toba with promises. Srikandi with defined norms, Jamo with wellness, decisions. So one thing that I do remember some words, because obviously you spend 5 weeks in a place and you pick up on a couple of words, obviously. But I remember everyone saying makan, makan, makan. It means eat. Come on, eat. And everyone, when you go to a market, food market in the evening, for example, everyone will have you try what they're making for you to decide whether you want to eat it or not. And everyone will go, makan, makan, eat it. So giant Patma, we've actually seen these. These are really giant flowers. I mean, they classify as flowers, but to me, they look a lot more like plants, but it does classify as a flower. Window of opportunity. So there's a lot that I really want to go through all of these cards of this deck because it feels very interesting. I have to say, I believe that there's elements not just from Java but from Sumatra as well. In Sumatra, you can still see orangutans in the wild, as you can also in Borneo. I have seen them last year. I was in Borneo. Um, so it's not just Java, it's also Sumatra, which is a bit less known as an island, especially not as visited when it comes to tourists. The Barong, so I have watched the Barong ceremony in Bali, so that was incredibly interesting as well. It looks like it's not just in Java, as I said, but also the surrounding islands, which is very interesting. So, absolutely interesting about this because I always say that cultures are incredibly interesting to me. I always want to learn more as much as I can because that is the only way in which I will then be able to connect to others and form these meaningful connections and bonds with other people when at least you're humble enough to understand that not everyone shares the same type of culture, and as a reflection on that, you can actually connect with others only when you decide to open up your mind and understand what they want to show you. So it is really interesting. Very, very interested by this deck. Very grateful to Rockpool for doing this because I imagine it's a bit of a gamble, but very, very stoked about this. Now, that was it for today. So thank you so much, everyone, for being with me because it was a very long video again. And my voice is going, so that is as long as today I may be able to film, but that was enough. So thank you so much for being here and have a great day.